All right, folks, buckle up because today we're diving deep into Stefan Pinkwart's My Thoughts Are Suing Me.
Oh, this one is a wild ride.
It really is. So picture this, all those brilliant ideas you've ever had, the ones that kind of just vanished.
Yeah.
They decide to take you to court.
You know, it sounds absurd, but it gets you thinking.
For sure. And Pinkwart somehow manages to make this legal battle hilarious and thought-provoking.
It's a clever way to explore that feeling we all have, like we're not quite living up to our creative potential.
Right. Like we've all had that amazing idea for a book or a business or, in my case, a stand-up routine that only ever made my cat laugh.
It's those what-if moments that can really haunt you.
Totally. And in Pinkwart's world, these inductive thoughts are like, enough is enough. We're taking this to court.
So what kind of evidence do these forgotten thoughts bring to the table?
Oh, it's a goldmine of hilarious, relatable stuff. Like, there's the dusty manuscript, obviously.
The classic unfinished novel.
Yep. And then there's the dream journal, filled with, the usual nonsensical dream gibberish.
Right, because who can actually decipher those?
Exactly. And then, just to add insult to injury, there's a sticky note with a sitcom idea so bad it's almost good.
Oh, those are the worst. So cringy, but you can't help but laugh.
I know, right? But then, Pinkwart hits us with something that's not so funny.
Oh, yeah, the forgotten poem.
Yeah, from 2008.
Mm-hmm.
The one he started on a train ride, full of potential, but ultimately abandoned. It's like a punch to the gut.
It is. That's the one that really makes you think, what incredible ideas have I let slip away?
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes we let the chaos of life bury those little sparks of genius.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. Pinkwart doesn't just leave us wallowing in existential dread.
Thankfully, no. So what's the antidote to this thought abuse, as he calls it?
Well, he offers a solution, a sort of slam-winning hack, and it involves turning those forgotten thoughts into relatable characters.
Okay, now that's interesting. How does that work?
So instead of just having abstract ideas floating around, he gives them a voice, a personality.
Ah, so it's like bringing those neglected thoughts to life.
Exactly. He imagines them standing up in court, pleading their case.
And this is where his humor really shines, right? Because he turns these complex emotions into a full-blown courtroom drama.
Oh, absolutely. We've got patients suing for neglect, anger demanding its day in court.
And unrequited love seeking justice. It's brilliant.
It is, and what I love about it is that he's not just making us laugh, he's giving us a tool to process those emotions.
By making them relatable, right? Turning them into something we can understand and maybe even laugh at.
Exactly. He's showing us that even our messiest, most confusing emotions can be transformed into something engaging and even entertaining.
It's a pretty powerful concept. And who knows, maybe by giving those forgotten thoughts a voice, we can unlock some hidden potential within ourselves.
It's definitely worth a shot.
Agreed. So, we've established that our thoughts might be plotting a legal uprising. But how do we actually stop them?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, and that's what we'll be digging into next. Stay tuned.
So we've talked about the guilt, the humor, the existential dread of potentially being sued by our own thoughts.
Right. Like, can we really be held accountable for not acting on every single idea that pops into our heads?
I mean, it IS our brain, right?
Exactly. It's not like we're intentionally committing thought abuse.
But that's where things get interesting, because Pinkwart taps into a real tension here.
Yeah, it's that nagging feeling that we're wasting something precious.
Like maybe we are letting these little sparks of genius just fade away.
And he really captures that in that whole courtroom scene,
With the forgotten thoughts lining up to testify against him.
Yeah. It's absurd, but incredibly relatable.
It is. But let's be real for a second. Our minds are constantly churning out ideas.
So absolutely. Like a nonstop factory of thoughts, 24/7.
Some brilliant, some completely ridiculous. We can't possibly chase every single one.
We'd never get anything done. We'd be paralyzed by indecision. Right. It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. We don't want to let the truly valuable ideas slip away, like Pinkwart's forgotten poem.
The one from 2008?
Yeah, that one. A genuine spark of creativity, lost in the chaos of everyday life.
It's heartbreaking. It makes you wonder what other masterpieces are hiding in the attics of our minds.
Totally. You know what reminds me of something called the Zygarnik effect?
Oh, I've heard of that. Something about unfinished tasks sticking in our minds.
Exactly. It's like those thoughts keep nagging at us until we address them, give them some kind of closure.
So it's like our minds are wired to crave completion.
It seems that way. And when we leave these thoughts hanging, these ideas unexpressed, it creates a sort of mental tension.
Which can actually block our creativity in the long run.
Right. So how do we escape this cycle of thought abuse? What's the antidote?
Well, Pinkwart seems to suggest that writing is key, particularly poetry.
But I'm guessing any form of creative expression could work.
Oh, definitely. Painting, sculpting, music, anything that helps externalize those thoughts.
It's like taking those abstract concepts and giving them a tangible form, right?
Exactly. Like, okay, thought, you're not just floating around in my head anymore. Now you're on paper.
I love that.
Yeah.
But even if we manage to capture those fleeting thoughts, sometimes the bigger challenge is figuring out what to do with them.
Right. You have this brilliant idea, but then what?
Exactly. So how do we go from a jumble of thoughts to a coherent story, a finished product?
That's where Pinkwart's slam-winning hack of turning thoughts into characters comes in. It's not just about writing them down, it's about breathing life into them.
Oh, I like that. Give them a voice, a personality, let them speak for themselves.
Exactly. And he actually provides a concrete example in the book he mentions.
Wait, are you talking about Poetry Master?
Yeah. The one he claims can unlock your inner poet in just 7 days.
7 days, huh? Sounds a bit ambitious.
It does, but he does offer some really practical tips and techniques.
So it's like a crash course in turning those abstract thoughts into compelling characters, especially for poetry and spoken word.
Exactly. And even if poetry's not your thing, the core principle is still valuable.
Right. It's about finding a way to make those thoughts tangible, to give them a form outside of our own minds.
Precisely. And maybe even make them a little bit terrifying in the process.
Because who knows what those unruly thoughts might get up to once we give them the power of speech. All right, so we've faced the existential terror of our thoughts dragging us to court.
And we've explored the Zeigarnik effect, those unfinished tasks haunting our minds.
But how do we actually break free from this cycle of thought abuse?
Right, let's get practical. Pinkwart gives us some concrete advice.
So what's the first step? How do we stop neglecting those brilliant ideas?
Well, it starts with simply acknowledging those thoughts. Don't just let them slip away.
Capture them, like write them down.
Exactly. Jot them down, record a voice memo, scribble them on a napkin, whatever works. Pinkwart even mentions a shopping list with just avocado on it.
At least he wrote something down.
Exactly. It's a start. The point is to capture those rogue thoughts before they vanish.
So step one, capture. What's next?
Well, once you've rounded up those runaway thoughts, give them some structure. Remember Pinkwart's slam-winning hack?
Turning them into characters.
That's the one. Imagine your neglected to-do list items could actually speak. What would they say? What kind of personalities would they have?
Okay, let me try. My overflowing laundry basket would be this melodramatic diva lamenting its wrinkled fate.
You see, you're already getting it.
And it would probably be demanding to be pampered with fabric softener.
Exactly. You've given it a voice, a personality. Now explore its story. Why is it being ignored? What does it want? What's standing in its way?
This is where things could get really fun. Imagine turning your daily struggles into a full-blown sitcom.
Starring your thoughts. The Adventures of Dusty Manuscript and Procrastination Pete.
Oh, I love it.
And don't be afraid to use humor. Remember how Pinkwart compares himself to Elon Musk? It's a way of saying, hey, we all feel inadequate sometimes.
But let's not take ourselves too seriously, right?
Exactly. Embrace the absurdity of it all. It can actually help unlock creativity.
Because when we can laugh at our fears, they lose a bit of their power over us.
Right. And when we give those fears a voice, turn them into characters, we can start to see them for what they are. Just thoughts.
And thoughts can be challenged, transformed, even turned into something beautiful.
Absolutely. But I know what some listeners might be thinking. This all sounds great, but I'm not exactly Shakespeare.
I can barely write a grocery list, let alone a cast of compelling characters.
Well, Pinkwart has a suggestion for that. Remember that Poetry Master book you mentioned?
The one that claims to unlock your inner poet in 7 days.
That's the one. It's like a crash course in creative expression, specifically for poetry and spoken word.
And even if poetry is not your thing, the core principle still applies, right?
Exactly. It's about finding a way to give those thoughts a form, a structure, a way to exist outside of your own head.
So it's about taking those raw diamonds of thought and polishing them into something brilliant.
Whether that's through writing, painting, music, or even just having a deep conversation with a friend.
It's about honoring those sparks of inspiration that make you uniquely you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So let's leave our listeners with a challenge inspired by Stefan Pinkwart.
Okay, I like it.
Think of one thought you've been neglecting, one of those diamonds gathering dust in the back of your mind. This week, do something with it. Write it down, draw it, dance it, talk about it. Whatever feels right, give that thought the attention it deserves.
See what happens when you bring it out into the light.
You might surprise yourself. Maybe it's the seed of a new project, a hidden talent, or just a moment of unexpected joy.
Who knows? Maybe it'll even turn into your next masterpiece. Or at least a hilarious story to share at your next dinner party. Be creative. Stefan would want that. And for practical tips on turning your thoughts into compelling poetry, check out Poetry Master. We'll leave the links in the show notes. Until next time, keep those thoughts flowing.